Welcome to From Within She Rises. I'd like you to take a breath with me. Inhale in. Feel your ribs expanding. Feel your spirit land. And as you exhale, let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders drop. Let the static clear. You're here now. And what you're about to hear isn't a performance. It's a pulse. It's the sound of something deeper waking up inside of you. So welcome to an episode of the series Moments of Atonement. I think that's where we're putting this. I don't know if it really matters, but today's episode is called To Pass Through Ascension, Faith, Frequency, or Faith. And yeah, today we're going to be naming something the spiritual world keeps dancing around because it keeps popping up on my TikTok page. It keeps getting sent to me because there's a shift happening. And it's not just energetic, it's diagnostic. And some people are exhausted. Others are wide awake at 11 p.m. writing down revelations. The internet's talking, the Schumann resonance is spiking, the solar flares are getting stronger, and suddenly everyone is either falling apart or they are lighting up. But what's really happening here, why some of us are collapsing while others are vibrating with purpose, clarity, holy fire. What if it's not random? What if it's just about energy? What if it's just about that energy when that energy meets inside you? Because when the frequency rises, it doesn't hit your body in a vacuum. It hits your nervous system, your memories, your patterns, your soul's alignment. It's either going to find your ego or it's going to find surrender. It's going to find love. And I've talked about this over and over again. And there are only two states. I had somebody, and I think I'm going to get into this a little bit later. I was actually going to record this episode yesterday because I had a bunch of Schumann resonance stuff pop up on my For You page yesterday, probably because I had been sent one a couple days ago, and it was like all about, if you're feeling headaches, if you're feeling dizzy, if you're feeling blah, 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 like drink lots of water, it'll pass. I'm going to drink some water right now, but that's because I'm behind on my intake. And I talk too much. I've been having revelations on the water and recording them. Anyways, it popped up and I was like, oh, this feels like he's so close. He's so close to understanding. But the reality of it is we're almost looking for, okay, it's good that you have a headache. It's good that you have that. Those things, let's get real about this. And not conspiracy stuff, not fluff. But what we're seeing and what we are feeling individually, collectively, there are two different responses to this same energetic shift. And so if we look at the resonance, the Schumann resonance spike, as people are saying we're going to switch dimensions, but if this is all a projection of our collective consciousness, then the spike is actually us, the higher spike in frequency is us moving the collective towards a frequency of love instead of fear, which obviously we've been living deep in that fear. And it's ego's fighting back. It's not a coincidence that we just had a protest and it doesn't matter. It's not left versus right, guys. So that doesn't matter either. That has to be said because people are so focused on the conspiracy side and if their side is right and wrong. It doesn't fucking matter. What has always mattered is intention. Okay? So if 12 million people go out to protest, and their intention is to spread the fact that we're meant to love everyone and allow everyone into a country no matter what. Whether you agree with that statement or not, the majority of the people standing up there are in that frequency of love. So it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. The matter is the intention. What matters is the intention behind it. Okay, do you understand? And so that being said, there could be people that also feel like what is being done is done through love. And maybe they are so optimistic and hopeful and full of joy that things are going the way they're going. So, it's at the end of the day, it's the intention behind what you're doing that matters. Is it done in a frequency of love, or is it done in a frequency of fear? And so it's not about switching timelines. It's about our collective healing. And when we have these two very drastic responses to this Schumann resonance, it's wild. Like, and I would say the majority, and this tracks well, right? Like the majority of people are still, they're getting headaches, they're feeling exhaustion. And that's the one camp, is like when your ego's still gripping, this is the space where that feels, you feel crushed under pressure, because all of a sudden the frequency of most people, like there was a huge spike because literally there were millions of people that thought they were protesting for love. Whether it was the right thing or not in your eyes, when they stepped foot out there on the streets, their focus was, how do I spread love? How do I do this? And obviously there are certain incidences that were not done in that matter, but the majority of it was love, right? And so when you have like millions of people, and not only that, the millions of people behind their screens that are watching this, and they're like, hell yes, this is amazing. Go love. Go what Christ preached, which is like, love thy neighbor like thyself, like love everyone equally. And so that's a lot of people all in that frequency. And that doesn't mean that all of those people were ready to surrender the ego either, right? So a lot of us still felt, there's this huge spike in like frequency of love in Christ consciousness. And then all of a sudden there's a huge spike in pressure, and then you're getting headaches because your body, your physical self, your ego mind is fighting against it. So if you're still getting headaches, you're still getting exhaustion, emotional flooding, you're just like crying like crazy. I honestly feel like for me, the crying thing, the grief, I don't hold the grief without the emotional flood now, but it took a lot. It took a lot of breaking down. I broke down the other day because I still have them every once in a while, but it took a lot of breaking down on the kitchen floor, Your nervous system's chaotic. Maybe you're breaking out in canker sores. Maybe you're noticing tingling in your extremities because your nervous system is at a max. Maybe you're getting brain fog. Maybe you're feeling physical inflammation that you don't typically feel, right? And so that it's not normal per se, but let's use it as a scientific diagnostic tool and say, hey, this is proof that I still need to surrender the ego. And I think there are a lot of people that are so close to the answers. Like they understand that there's their frequencies. They understand that they have to ascend, but it's almost like you're gripping at the fact that somebody else is going to do the rest of the work for you. But you're going to stay behind in the headaches and the confusion and the exhaustion until you're willing to surrender your ego, until you're willing to hold Christ's hand, if you will, or whoever you want to call. The names don't matter, labels don't matter. Hold God's hand and walk alongside him and let him into your path of surrender. And so, yeah, it's not because the energy is wrong. The energy is not wrong. It's because the energy in that frequency is so pure. That frequency of love, Christ consciousness, is so pure. And anything impure in you rises to the surface, right? The ego is smart. When it feels like something is coming crashing against it, it's going to fight hard. And I had that experience today, and it's so wild because, like I said, I was going to record this yesterday, but I just felt like, you know what, I'll just record it tomorrow, the morning of, and I'll release it at 5 like I planned, and it is what it is. And I think it was because I needed to have a physical manifestation of this. I needed to have this physical manifestation of exactly what I'm talking about, because this morning I got hit with a wall of ego. And I went to the gym, and somebody immediately when I walked in was like, so you're really into that Jesus thing now, eh? And I was like, well, I've always been into him, but yes, like I'm out there talking about it because for me, it's not just necessarily Jesus. Yes, it's Jesus, but it's Christ consciousness, right? It's understanding that we are all one, and in that oneness, in that if we are all pieces of God and God is perfect and we are perfect, we need to start seeing each other as perfect. In the moment that we start finding that level of how do I find the perfect in my neighbor, the one that's triggering me, and like how would Jesus feel, is the moment that parts of you atone. And that's interesting. I've always felt like you have to love yourself first, but it's actually like so interconnected. You have to find it in them because they are you, and then you need to heal that piece. And so without that understanding and that love for everyone, you never actually fully heal the self-love piece either. You might think that you are, but you're not. But anyways, I had, and it's kind of interesting because it was a good depiction of how your body's fighting physically right now with headaches, exhaustion, and all these things. But I walked in there and then it was like an argument. And I was like, whoa, like, first of all, I wasn't getting a lot in. I was getting cut off after cut off, which is fine. And I kept saying, okay, I don't want to have this argument right now. It's just feeding your ego and mine. And he was like, well, that's your ego not wanting to fight me. And I was like, I'm not sure we understand what the word ego means, or we're on different, and this is a lot, I say this a lot, is that I start to have these arguments with people that are not on the same plane of existence as me yet. And that's fine, like, and this is why we have to understand the fact that Christ, to his own disciples that had spent so much time, one-on-one time with him, who he had the Spirit of truth coming to him, telling him these, helping him remember these things. Because like he did come not knowing, right? Like he had to also remember. They spent so much one-on-one time with him. And yet at the end, before he was crucified, he said to them that they were not ready to bear the truth, right? And so that means they had not fully surrendered the ego. And so instead of him having these arguments with them about what was real and what was not, he just said, hey, you're not ready to bear this truth, and that's okay. I'm going to bow out. When you are ready to fully surrender to this knowing, the Spirit of truth will come as the intermediary in a way, they will give you the knowing. They will give you those revelations once you're ready to hear them. And so I don't know how to explain this to you guys and more. And so I tried several times and I said, hey, I don't want to do this right now. And he did keep fighting, but eventually I was like, I'm not doing this. He said something about Catholics being devil worshippers. I think he expected, because a lot of Christians sometimes, it's like religion in of itself is quite ego driven. And so they tend to like whip out this thing and start throwing scripture at you and explaining, like this is a tool. And so on that note, I will touch base at the very end of this about like the vaulted Catholic scriptures. But for now, it was just kind of beautiful that I had this physical manifestation of what is being felt, what these people that are feeling the headaches and the exhaustion and this nervous system crash are really feeling right now during these huge spikes. And that's what it feels like when you won't let go of your ego, when your body is trying to hold what it was never meant to contain, when the system is running on old software and the light exposes this glitch. I know you want to feel like this is part of the process, but God wouldn't give us pain. You haven't allowed him in yet. And the person on the path is not being punished. You're being purified. And it hurts because you are resisting the very thing that is meant to liberate you. So the second path, there's another path that you can take, path 2, if you will, which is ego surrendered. Where instead of you getting this big spike, like we did this weekend, where everybody's talking about feeling horrible, feeling exhausted, needing 12 hours sleep or 14 hours or whatever. Instead of this collapse, it's actually activating. You feel clear, you're buzzing, you're creatively just alive, you're suddenly awake when the world is asleep. You need less sleep, and just guided, spoken through. And your nervous system isn't fighting the wave, it's receiving it. And this doesn't mean you're better. It doesn't mean you're better. It just means your ego's not in the way. You're coherent, if you will. You're ready. And the purification has begun in you already. And now you're just a vessel. And that is the truth of it. I had seen a comment on one of the videos about it, about how, you need to do like Reiki and energy center meditations. And I will say, like, that is something I do every single day. Every single morning, I wake up at 5 and I do a blessed energy center alignment meditation with, I've rewritten it. You can find them online, like all over the place. I personally have rewritten it to have prayer included. It is like very Christ-centered. It's about blessing all of my centers with a new frequency of love. And so I start literally every single one of my days. I've started every single one of my days for almost like 2.5 months now, I think. I have started every single one of my days with this thing that I've created that has frequencies playing in the background, specific frequencies, and again, prayer, everything. So there is validity to these things. I think there's the point that I'm trying to get across is that everyone is so close to the knowing. They're like right there. They know about frequency. They know about the Schumann resonance. And I also think that these are pieces of our remembrance. They're pieces of our remembrance, but then our ego justifies them with logic. And then we have a hard time actually surrendering the ego. And I honestly do believe you can't surrender the ego without letting God in. Not fully. And do I think that I'm fully atoned yet? No, absolutely not. But I welcome every single trigger, because every single trigger gets me closer to how do I see this person through perfection and love, and how do I heal that? How do I see them through those eyes, that Christ consciousness, so that I can heal a little piece of not only them but myself as well? Because when I start to see people, when I start to see others, the point is we are all one consciousness, and if we're all one consciousness, if I heal a little bit of that, then I heal everybody. And that's what we're seeing in this like spike, is that, you know, whether we want it's not, again, not left versus right, but it's the idea that people are starting to see others being mistreated and finding compassion for them. But that doesn't mean that they're not actually really angry with other people. So it really is, there's a spike of love frequency, but there's still a definite layer of ego. I have to get to the point where like I'm still healing, right? We're all at that point. So yes, this frequency it's not here to punish you. It's just here to purify you. And whether it feels like chaos or clarity, it really does depend entirely on how much of you are still trying to control. How much of you is still trying to control the outcome of all of this? So then let's take this a layer deeper, if you will. Let's take this a layer deeper, because the frequency itself isn't personal. It doesn't choose sides. It doesn't favor the spiritual over the secular. It just is, right? And so how it moves through you, that's shaped by what you've surrendered. If your ego is still trying to protect, perform, or prove, the frequency meets static. It comes to if you look at like this chakra system or Reiki, it's now coming and it's hitting a clogged channel. You get signals, but they're distorted. Your nervous system interprets the shift as a threat instead of an invitation, because you're not open. And then you're holding your breath, you're bracing, you're gripping. The body reflects it. That's why you're feeling exhausted. That's why you're getting headaches. That's why you're not letting it in. You haven't surrendered. That's the root of the symptoms, because the body keeps the score. And the body is ego too. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not even going to get started. We're not going to go real woo today, but I'm just going to go a little woo. And that's the root of the symptoms of so many right now. They're not weak. They're just resisting. And I think at the end of the day, we can only resist so long. And most of these people that are commenting under here, or they know about the spikes, they know about the frequency, and they're feeling the headaches, and they're telling people to push through, just keep. Some of them have it kind of right, and they're like, you got to surrender, but it's easier said when you've misplaced the piece of the divine. And if your ego has softened, if you've already let go of needing to control how you're seen, how it lands, whether it goes viral or whether it makes sense, then something wild happens. You become a clear channel, and the frequency moves through you like lightning through a copper wire. And suddenly, all of a sudden, you're getting drop-ins in the middle of the night that feel like scripture. You speak, and your voice carries more weight. You feel ideas, not just think them. Like you're visceral. You don't need a plan. You're just being led by the seat of your pants. And that's the difference between channeling and embodying, between performing frequency and being frequency. You weren't meant to control the message. You were meant to conduct it. You were never meant to create from control. You were meant to create from coherence. Coherence is the body aligned with the truth of God, aligned with God. It's the nervous system when it feels safe. It's not bracing, but bowing. It's not about being loud. It's not about being dramatic. It's just about being clear. When the ego is gone, clarity arrives. And the clarity is what changes people. Not clever words, not flashy graphics. It's just clarity. And there's a reason this next part feels tender. Because I'm not here to point fingers, but I am here to name frequency. And lately I've been watching a lot of creators. I'm not going to call anybody out. And I'll be honest. The first time I found some of them, I felt something. It wasn't ego, not distortion, just curiosity. You know, this particular one, he was speaking the language. He was talking about Schumann spikes, which, I mean, that's not even really a language. Let me just quickly go even farther down the rabbit hole of Christ consciousness. Once you tap into this, you understand that if this is all a projection, then these Schumann spikes don't matter. But they are a projection of us, our ego needing validation of these feelings. They are a projection of the fact that we've not fully surrendered as a full one consciousness. Vibration, DNA upgrades, solar flares. He was talking about it all. And he knew something was happening. But here's what I also noticed about him and about a lot of other people. Something feels performative, polished, packaged, like the truth was passing through a filter. And that filter was fear of being too faithful, maybe? I don't know. I think there's a lot of creators know that little hashtag Christ consciousness here, there, and everywhere, but they don't talk about actually coming close to him. They don't talk about how you ascend to it. They just talk about it like it's this thing that you want to do, but you can be living in it right now. I'm living in it. You can live in it. It's an understanding that we are already living in it. And let's name this performative, I don't even know what we're going to call it. I'm going to call it Babylon frequency. And I know this is going to feel tender to some of you. Babylon frequency knows the words. It sounds spiritual and beautifully woo-woo. It sounds like an escape. It speaks of awakening. It speaks of energy. And it even speaks of love a lot of times. It even nine times out of 100 hashtags Christ consciousness. But it does it without ever really naming God, without ever bowing, without ever surrendering. I see a lot of hashtag Christ consciousness as if Christ was this thing to remove us from God. But Christ was the one that came to show us that we are part of God. And so you really when you remove the part that actually allows you to surrender the ego, the part that actually allows you to step into your beautiful power and sovereignty and transcend, you're left with pieces of the puzzle that are fully disconnected and will just come crashing down eventually. Without ever bowing, without ever surrendering, it uses the sound of liberation to keep you stuck in self. And let me be clear. I don't think these people are evil. I don't think they're lying. I think that they might be in the in-between. I think they might be walking with God privately, maybe, but they're still too afraid. They're not allowed, they haven't allowed that walk to shape their public altar. They're still protecting. Because let me tell you, there is pushback on this. You know, there's pushback from all sides. The ones that want ego to still stay there and they want to build, all they care about is the abundance of the physical self. And all they care about is, how do I manifest $25 million? You know, like they care about things that don't matter. they care about using Christ consciousness for their own gain. Or you get the other side that are so locked in the fear of religion that they don't want to surrender. I'm not even asking them to do anything wild. I'm just asking you to choose love over fear every single moment. To stop yourself and ask, how would Jesus see this? That's all I'm asking. And yet, both sides are very critical. So fully surrendering your ego and allowing yourself to speak openly about the actual piece that's missing here is really fucking hard. And so I think a lot of them know the piece. They're working on it within themselves. They're just too afraid to speak out. And here's the catch-22 is if you don't speak out about it, you're not actually in it. You're not actually in Christ consciousness. You've not actually found the key. And Babylon can speak the truth, but it can't ever embody it. Embodiment only happens when you die to ego, when you stop needing to be seen as a mystic and simply become a vessel. Or a psychic or whatever. I don't even know how many people are like, this is trendy right now. Not only is Christ trendy, we're at a peak of collective fear and ego. And things that could save us externally are trendy. So things like frequency and all the pieces disconnected from God that are God, they're trendy. But also like the very deep religion, hunkering down into the fear of that are also trendy because we're looking for external saviors. And I want you to find your own fucking power. Babylon will always sell the light. The real ones will become it. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to become the real one. I think I want to touch here before I move on to, is God hidden in the influencer? But one of the things that came up today was, like I said, the Catholic Church being devil worshippers. And my response was, there is no devil. And I think that stirred something because it was like, well, there has to be good and evil. And I was like, I totally agree. But good is love. Evil is ego. We're so hell-bent on looking at and finding that external source to either A, be the good that saves us, or B, be this devil that's going to destroy everyone else that you think is ruining your life. That we're not actually looking within. And going back to what I've already talked about in my last episode, feel free to go listen, but John chapter 16, verses 12 to 15 is the moment in which Christ says they're not ready to bear that truth. They're not ready. They haven't fully surrendered the ego. They can't hear these things. But once you are ready, once you surrender it, you have visions of Christ. You have the Spirit of truth descend upon you. You have the burning tongue, the burning throat, yourself. You start a spiral of remembrance. And so let's bring this back to matter cannot neither be created nor destroyed. So if it can't be, then, and we're all one consciousness, then that means that we're all consciousness is still here. Right? All consciousness. And so we're sitting here so mad, not all of us, but some of us so mad at the secret society that keeps destroying civilizations. We look to the book of Revelation, I believe it's chapter 20, that's saying that I know it's saying that the ego will continue to be released because God can't keep it away forever, because that would take away free will. And we have to choose over and over and over and over again to remember and pick him. Whereas the ones that are looking for somebody external to blame for all of this, somebody external to save them from all of this, they see it as the final push where all of a sudden all these evil people are going to be released on us that are then going to wipe out, like Tartaria, if you will. And so then it all also comes back to having a deep-rooted anger that there are all these amazing books hidden in the vaults of the Vatican. I'm here to tell you it doesn't fucking matter. And I said that. I said that this morning because when you allow Christ consciousness in, when you get the burning tongue, throat, fire, whatever, it feels like within your body. When you get that, you start to remember. Because if we are all one consciousness, if matter cannot be created or destroyed and it is always here, then that means we have the ability to tap into all of this knowing that we're so angry that it's hidden in a vault. All you have to do is surrender. That's it. All you have to do is surrender. All of that knowing that you're so angry that somebody has locked up away from you, it's at your fingertips. You just haven't surrendered yet. You don't need it. You have absolute power and sovereignty here. Not just me. I'm not here to gatekeep either. You. And I want you to know that. So moving on to the question, is God hidden in the influencer? This is where we hold the tension because I'm not here to cancel people who are still remembering. I think it's important. I'm still remembering. I just feel as though maybe I'm further along than the ones that happen to be popping up on my page. But I've also seen a few that are likely way farther ahead than me. I'm not here to cancel those people. I'm here to ask deeper questions. Because what if those creators, some of these creators do know God, but they haven't yet felt safe enough to say it? They're mid-Exodus. They're walking out of Babylon, but still carrying its language, you know? They've tasted holiness, but they're still figuring out if they're safe enough to share without being mocked, without being misread, or made to feel like they betrayed their audience. That, for me, was the biggest surrender of ego. Like, the biggest was having to be like, okay, I'm completely dropping this entire identity that I built around being a bodybuilder, that I built around being a nutritionist, that I built around getting women some really banging peaches. And I had to walk away from that to now, like, you can listen to it in my earlier episodes. I'm still having such a hard time seeing Christ and God, but now I'm like, fuck it. You know, I also want the full understanding that God doesn't care about the label. So if you don't want to label him, that doesn't matter. It doesn't. But I'm not ashamed of the fact that I am, like, walking alongside him, that we are all chosen. The Bible says this. It's just misconstrued. But only some of us are willing to accept the choosing. All you have to do is accept, and accepting does require surrender. And that's it. And the fact is, like, a lot of people are deeply spiritual in private, but they are terrified to be faithful in public. Of course they are. Like I said, there's like two very big extremes. There are people in the middle that just, like, they want to find their way back to spirituality and a connection to God because maybe they're like me and they're a recovering Catholic that just felt so off at the rules and gatekeeping that literally Christ came to stop, and yet here we are. Or some of them, you know, on the other side are maybe have never been spiritual, and they're looking at these distorted views of the book of Revelation to put blame on someone else external. You have full fucking power. And you can feel it. You can feel when someone's touched the altar, even if they don't name it. There's like a trembling in their voice, a reverence in their silence, a moment where they pause before saying something, like they're not sure if they should actually drop the bomb. Because they know they're standing on holy ground. And they may not say Jesus, and that's fine. They may not quote scripture, because I don't know a lot of it. And that's also fine. But something in their frequency is no longer about self. Still, there's a difference between walking with God and walking for him. And the shift happens the moment you stop editing the sacred to keep your following comfortable. The fruit may be sweet, but I still wonder, what tree did it fall from? This isn't about judgment. This is about discernment. Because the world is filled with shiny fruit that leads you nowhere. The only way to know is not by how it tastes, but by who it glorifies. So what if you're not broken? What if you're not overthinking? What if the buzzing in your body isn't a problem to fix, but a call to answer? You're not too much. You're not a manic. You're not behind. You're just awake. God speaks when the noise stops, and sometimes it's not at church, not on the mountaintop, but it's at 11:11 p.m. with the laundry still in the machine, a baby monitor glowing and screaming, and a notebook full of drop-ins you weren't planning to write. You're not here to parrot the frequency. You are here to embody it. You are not here to go viral. You're here to go vertical. To remember that clarity doesn't come from hustle. It comes from coherence. And coherence begins with devotion. The world is loud with spiritual performance right now. But there's a quiet remnant being retuned in secret. If that's you, if you've been writing things you don't understand, saying yes to things you can't explain, or feeling waves of God through your chest when no one is watching, you're not losing it. You're just becoming a vessel. This isn't just a frequency upgrade, guys. It's a call to fidelity. You'll know who you serve by what you embody. And when it gets loud out there, when Babylon puts on its best show, you do not need to shout louder. You just need to remember the truth does not need to fight. It just needs to stand. And sometimes stand still. Thank you. I love you. I will see you on the next spiral.